the political controversy over why didn't Apple invest more in the United States hasn't gone unnoticed by Apple, right? I mean, just this year, in February of this year, Apple announced that it would spend $500 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. That includes this, I mentioned Texas, a factory in Texas to make some of Apple's chips and for artificial intelligence servers. And Apple says it could create 20,000 research and development jobs across the country at that time.
Yeah, so I'm so
Not
sorry
bad.
to disappoint people that this is basically nonsense. So this is actually Apple's third such announcement in 12 years, okay? So I think the number goes from, in the first Trump term, it was a $350 billion announcement over 4 years, and then it became a $420 billion announcement, and then a $500 billion announcement. If those numbers were sort of actually being invested in America, like, oh my God, like every day you just open the newspaper and you just see page after page of classified ads where Apple is just hiring people at like 15 different factories. Just think of what you actually just said, quoting the press release. If you're spending $500 billion and you're only creating 20,000 jobs, you're doing something wrong. And Apple is the most capitalist efficient, corporation on the planet. None of the numbers make sense. My guess, and this is just a guess, but I think it's a pretty educated one, is what Apple is counting as spend or investment is actually share buybacks and dividends. Because again, remember
really?
how big Apple is. Yeah. Okay. So Apple spends more than $100 billion on share buybacks per year, right? This is just a company purchasing its own shares because that's how profitable they are. And that is more than the top 6 or 7 Wall Street banks combined in terms of how much they spend on buybacks, right? So Apple's just enormous in this respect. And 70% of Apple shareholders are in America. So if you're spending $100 billion a year and you count $70 billion as an investment in America, I mean, it kind of is an investment in America in a certain sense, but it's not building factories and such. So if any of these 3 press releases, you go through them and you think, okay, I'm going to audit this, I'm going to sort of do some back of the envelope math. What's sort of hilarious, but also depressing, is that they don't really back it up with any substance. I mean, after saying $500 billion, they literally list a few examples where the figures are, we're spending $1 billion, on a factory in Houston for data servers. And you're like, well, okay, great. Where's the other $499 billion? So I think Apple is doing something pretty unethical in a certain sense. They're never deliberately lying to you because, these things are legal and they've got top teams for doing it, but they're misconveying, let's say, what the actual message is. So I would just encourage any reader who's skeptical of what I'm saying, go to the press release, Google it, Apple $500 billion investment, do your own math, and you tell me where you get on what's actually announced.
I